An enclosure is a technique of approaching a target note. It's a way of making your playing sound more chromatic, more hip, more modern. Now, in other videos we've talked about leading notes or approach notes, which are single notes you play before a target note, usually a half step or a semitone above or below. And that's a good way of introducing chromaticism into your playing. Using enclosures takes it to that next level. But essentially, where we're playing more than one note before the target note. But essentially it's the same principle of, it's a technique to approach a target note. So let's put that into context. Here is a 2-5-1 chord progression in the key of C major. Now, I've added the target notes in here at the beginning of the G7 bar, the third, B, and at the resolution point at the beginning of the C major 7 bar, the fifth, which is G. These are typical target notes for these chords. Now you'll notice I've added 2 quavers before these target notes. One is above the target note and the other is below, hence enclosing the target note. This is the simplest example of an enclosure. And this example shows a diatonic enclosure, which is using notes within the scale of the chord you're on. Now, of course, you don't have to start above the target note. You can start with the note below, then go above. But for now, let's stick with this first one. And I'm going to put it into context by adding some crotchet arpeggios, and I'll play it to you as well. So we're approaching that target note. One, two, 1, 2, 3. Now, to make this sound more chromatic, we can just make each enclosure note a half step or a semitone away from the target note, which sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. So those chromatic notes before the target note aren't really anything to do with the chord. We're focusing entirely on that target note and we're playing the notes either side of it. It's a way of enhancing that target note, really. Now, although this example best describes the enclosure definition of a note, I'm going to give you 2 other examples of approaching that target note, which is sort of under the same umbrella of enclosures. It'll make more sense a bit later. Firstly, we're going to approach the target note with 2 notes from above the target note. First, diatonically, to a 1, 2, 3. And then chromatically to a 1, 2, 3. And secondly, from 2 notes below the target note. Diatonically, 1, 2, 3. And chromatically. Now, at this point, I want to encourage you to practice those examples that I've given you there in other keys and stuff like that, but always thinking of that target note. Play around with, try different rhythms and stuff like that. And of course, you don't always have to use the B for the G7 and the G for the C major 7. you can use other chord tones. Remember, it's best to stick with the first, third, fifth or seventh, those chord tones of each chord, but use different target notes as well. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to skip to the next step, which is extending the enclosure. So now we're going to use 4 notes to enclose that target note. In example 1, we're starting with 2 notes, a whole step or tone away from the target note, then moving closer to a half step away before hitting that target note, kind of closing in on the target note. I'll play you that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. In example 2, we're using the same notes but in a different order. 2, 1, 2, 3. In example 3, we're starting by enclosing diatonically, then approaching chromatically from below. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And how about this one, using an altered enclosure into the C major chord. 1, 2, 3. And finally, rather than landing on that G, we can delay the resolution by playing an enclosure. Instead of the G, we'll play another enclosure so that the G comes in on beat 3. So we're delaying the resolution. So play the same lick but with that delay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Now, at this point, I want you to practice all of those, again in different keys, using other target notes as examples. I'm going to give you some more examples that I've put together as well. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Have fun, enjoy, practice.